Hello and welcome everybody to ConTech Exec. I've got some exciting guests with me here today. It's a potential replacement for Procore, at least Procore's competition. And I'm talking with Emma Nazim and Molly Abbott today from Constructable. Welcome, ladies. I'm excited to talk to you. We had a chance to kind of talk a little bit in kind of preparation for this, but I've been excited about this and kind of figuring out what you guys got going on. Emma, I'm just going to start with you. Give us a little background on Constructable and kind of how it got started.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having us. We're excited to be here. Myself, Molly, and John, our third co-founder, who is our CTO. We all worked together for a long time, about 10 years, at a prop tech company called Appfolio, which you can kind of think of as a Procore type product, but in the property management and real estate development space. We do have a lot of experience in that area, building big products that can support and run a whole business. And we got really excited. We'd done a few side projects together, got really excited to start our own company, work on something. And we're pretty drawn to construction early on. It's something we'd been a bit tangential to at Appfolio and had customers there we'd worked with who were also developers doing their own construction, had talked to them about some of the challenges they had in the space. But Molly also has a lot of family ties and background in construction too, which is part of what led us there. So I'll let her dive into that.
Yeah, Molly, go ahead with that because I was going to ask that next question. You come from a construction family, I guess, yeah?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, my husband's a GC. My dad is a specialty contractor. Brother-in-law is GC. Sister-in-law is an architect. Stepsister's architect. It's all surrounded by me. So construction is a hot topic during family dinners and such.
Right.
So
You hear all the complaints.
yeah, I worked at lots of construction companies during college and all that. So yeah.
So in designing Constructable, thinking about you come from like the property management side of things. So I've worked with several. When I was a GC, I worked with property managers on projects on their build outs. They were very involved in the kind of day to day. So I'm sure you come from the side of the world which says, hey, construction people have got some real issues. And so I mean, I think you guys are a little bit crazy for trying to attack the construction issues. So but I commend it. And so tell me a little bit about Constructable and kind of where it helps. It's a project management type software. Where did you start? Because I mean, there's a lot of places you can go from.
Yeah. So we actually started when we first started looking at the construction space. The problem that we were solving was that your data is all over the place. So I think one thing we learned really quickly is people are not just using Procore or Autodesk. Even just for project management, they've probably got 10 to 20 other tools where data ends up living, along with email and things like shared drives. And so actually a huge pain point was just finding information. And so where we originally started was as a product that tied all that information together, integrated into those systems, and then gave you a really easy to use search and Q&A where you could actually find answers. And you didn't have to know where the data was going to be. If it was in your email or in Procore or Autodesk, you could just get an answer and it would tie that information together. We loved solving that problem, and it is a true, real problem to solve. And ultimately, we started to feel like it was a bit of a Band-Aid, though. We were actually adding one more software that you needed to use to solve the problem that you have too much software.
Right.
And so as we kind of took a step back and said, where do we want to go next? What we got really excited about was the more we worked with our customers and people in the industry working on this product was actually looking at how can you really be a true all-in-one solution? How can we actually consolidate the products people are using so that they don't have a need for a product like what we're building that sits on top of everything? You can actually have a product that can go from bid management to closeout without needing to jump out of the product for different things and use point solutions, and truly have an all-in-one solution for almost every part of your business that feels like it really supports you. And so that's where we pivoted to working on what we're doing now to be more of a comprehensive project management, field management, financial management solution, rather than something that connected with all those pieces.
Right. More as a replacement tool. So Molly, you coming from that construction background and the folks complaining, at the family dinners, those kind of things. that's a monumental undertaking, right? Again, where do you start? And I know, I've got clients who are sitting there telling me, look, I don't need another piece of software where I've got to go in and add another hour to my day of I got to manage this software and I've got this over here that I got to put this into. Where'd you guys decide this, on the project management side of things? Did you try to focus on one portion and then build upon that? How'd that work?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it is a big monumental task. So where we decided to start was drawings. That
Okay.
is the heart of the project. That is, what everyone's looking at. And so we decided that we're going to be the best drawing management, drawing viewer product out there. And so if we can make that experience amazing and wonderful and then have every other feature tied back to those drawings, we can have a really comprehensive solution. So we knew we'd be spending a lot of time building all the features, but we got people pretty excited about our drawing viewer right away because it's fast, easy to use. There's lots and lots of features. We've noticed a lot of people who were using Procore would have to go out of Procore and use something like Bluebeam to do markup. And then it's like out of the system. So we wanted all of that markup to save within the system. So we really focused on our drawing viewer, to be honest.
Okay. So now drawing markups are a big thing for me, especially if you're dealing with like a remodel, or whether you're getting an as-built drawing or whatever, and then having to be able to accurately mark this up. So I'm going to, kind of get into the weeds here a little bit with like how detailed can you get into this architectural drawing and really, put the right things in, whether it's a symbol or items like if you're an electrician and you're working on things and you're putting in, a three-phase plug or putting in a three-phase something, are you able to put in all those different symbols and markups like from an architectural style thing so you can actually get a true as-built, or what does that look like for you right now?
Yeah, we have some of those pieces. We're continuing to expand the types of markup and custom things you can put in there. Where we actually found the biggest challenge was not necessarily the types of markup you could put in, but how you could communicate with the other people working on the project related to what you were putting there. So in most softwares, you have your own view. You can save things for yourself, or you can publish them to everyone on the project. And where we found the biggest challenge people were having and where they were having to leave their software was the stage in between that. It's not like you solve a problem by yourself and then you share the answer with everybody. There's always a phase where if you're the GC, you're working with a subcontractor, you're working with one of your consultants, an architect, an engineer to actually solve a problem that's on the plan or work through a change you need to make. And so what people were having to do was take screenshots from their software and then copy and paste that into an email. And now this conversation moves to 4 different threads over your email where you're looping people in at different times. And eventually you get to now publishing maybe some new markup on the drawings for everybody. And you've kind of lost the history of how you got there. And it's spread out across everyone's email, or maybe you've moved to like a Bluebeam session, but Bluebeam is not your project management software. And so now that's over there. And so that's really the key problem we set out to solve was how can we have this approach where you can start working through a problem and gradually share it out with people on the project as you need to, but everybody's working in the same place and all that history is saved. So as you're adding markup, you group it together by what are you actually trying to solve by adding this markup to your drawings? And then who needs to be involved in this conversation? And you could do things like add comments, add video recordings, continue to add markup, and it's continually shared with that group. And then as you're ready to make that a wider group that needs to have that information, or you solve the problem and it just needs to be gone, you have those options. And so you don't need to be going out of our product for that.
So how do you handle that communication? I mean, obviously in a change, just as that change order comes along, maybe there's a wall at a place or there's a certain item it's not really there. I mean, I've dealt with this several times. One example for me was I was building on a hotel. There was a design shaft where we actually had to cut concrete through the floor where they had designed the shaft to go. That was not going to happen. It was a post-tension floor. There was a cable running through the area where we were supposed to do it. We had to get everything moved around. Not only I had to get a hold of the structural engineer, I had to get a hold of the HVAC, the mechanical engineering group. I had those folks involved. boots on the ground, the guys that were going to be, cutting the sub that's going to be cutting the concrete, all those folks, man, everybody. What's your solution there to getting all those people onto your platform? Some of them aren't going to have your licenses. How does that work for you guys?
So the way our pricing works is you can invite as many people as you need to our product. There's no cost, there's no license. So it's really just as quick as putting their email in and inviting them.
Uh-huh.
And so we really have actually seen great adoption from the partners that our customers are working with, because it is really easy to use. They don't have to set, they basically just have to set a password and come
Okay.
in. And then, we've gotten a lot of great feedback that the product's really intuitive and easy to use. When we send you an email, it's going to link you directly to where you need to go look. And so it's quite quick for people. And then, so once you have those people, how that works is you specifically choose who are you working with as you add this markup. So let's say, you have that problem. There's something missing on the drawings. You'll start adding markup to the drawings. You'll specifically say, hey, I just need, this project manager on my team to be working on this, but I also need my architect to come in and look at this. And very similar to what people are used to with almost every other product they use in their work life. You use something like, something in OneDrive. You can choose who it's shared with. You don't just say, share this with everybody. And same with Google and tools like that, or, Teams, you create groups. You're basically creating a group to have this conversation. And then you're also giving them a landing page in our product where all of this is tracked. So if you're working through a problem, you have one place you can come in. Anyone who's been given access to this can now see all the comments, all the history, all the sheets where there's been markup that's tied to this problem in one really, really easy to view place that'll continue to get added to until you get to the point where you say, this is solved, we can resolve this and we don't need it anymore, or here's changes we're making. Now let's publish this out to the rest of the project team that's working on this, whether that's the internal GC team or any subcontractors and consultants that you've invited to use the product.
That's really cool. That's true. Again, whether you're working in pre-construction, getting subs involved, because where you got 15 different people, with eyes on a set of drawings, you're always going to find, different viewpoints. So is this working in a pre-construction environment as well? Or is this, kind of drawings are set, or are your GCs, I guess, who's your big client? Is it going to be GCs they're doing this? Is it subcontractors? Who's using your product?
So we primarily work with general contractors and subcontractors who are our customer.
Mm-hmm.
So if a general contractor is who purchases our product, then they'll invite their subcontractors to come in, and then they'll work in the pre-construction phase. That's actually where we see this used very, very heavily. Before you even have subcontractors necessarily, you're in there working with the architect, working with the owner to really flesh things out, make sure everybody's on the same page, work through things as you're putting together those bids to make sure things feel really accurate. So doing a lot of like pre-checks there, and then continuing to evolve that as you start inviting more groups into the product. We do also work with subcontractors as well, large subcontractors who sometimes have their own subcontractors. And so we're working, in a very similar fashion, or groups that are, design build groups in the subcontracting space, like fire protection, say, then they can also be working through this internally with their own teams or with the GC or an architect that they're working with as well.
Okay. Any AEC firms in there, kind of like just straight up architectural engineering firms using this product to help disseminate the information? Okay, I'll let you go, Molly.
Molly, I'll let you start.
Our primary customers are GCs and subcontractors as well. We do have a lot of the consultant world using our product because of the GCs that they're working with. And we actually do a lot of user research with that group because they do like the communication and, less email fatigue, and they can keep everything in context in one product for a project. So yeah, although we don't have any like architectural firms using it directly, they're using it because of the relationship with the GCs.
Right, I got you. Well, we definitely getting those folks involved, getting the architects and engineers involved in this it's probably, I would think, it's the biggest thing that you can do, because a lot of times, where you've got the client hires the architects and the engineering groups, and then you feel like you've got zero communication because you've got got to reach out to them, and they're taking their sweet time because they've already put in their hours on their designs. They really don't want to spend any more time on these rehash, because then they got to go back to the client and go, hey, by the way, there was an issue here, here, and here, and I've got to spend X amount because of this change that may have come up. Right. And so then so again, getting everybody on the same page. This also seems like an area where your RFIs and some of your submittals can also come into play just straight off the drawing. So does the Constructable have a lot of those features where it separates those things out and says, hey, by the way, looks like an RFI for approval?
Yes, we very much care about, we know a project needs to be, go fast, and waiting on, RFIs or submittals can be painful. So we make it very easy for the consultant group to get notified of those, log in and see them right away. It's all tied onto the plans. Emma talked earlier about the video recording. So instead of getting a long email with a big long text description, they're really liking these like quick videos so they can understand, the question a lot quicker, easier in the context of the plans versus somewhere else in a long written form. So yeah, trying to just, make sure the communication, clarity, and trust is there right on the plans.
Yeah, I think that, this picture speaks 1,000 words is probably much better. I don't know how many times in the old days, I guess we'll call it, I had to try to get the engineer or the architect to come out to the site so I could show them specifically, no, this is why this doesn't work. They couldn't, again, they're great visual people, but they couldn't maybe visualize maybe what I was saying to them on the phone or whatever. What about the field and the field's interaction with this? Again, when I think of project management software, I think of project managers, being out there, having to do their part. And this is not superintendents or foremen. Are you having superintendents or foremen also? Because a lot of times there's a lot of overlap, especially when it comes to, drawing markups. And I'll let you take this one. Being involved or getting positive feedback, negative feedback. What are you guys getting from those folks?
Yeah, no, we have our product used very, very heavily in the field. We do a lot of site visits where we'll bring you burritos and just walk around and watch you using our product on your phone or tablet. So we knew from the beginning that was going to be incredibly important. From the very beginning, we've had iOS and Android apps for both phone and tablet. We also designed the whole product to work really well offline or with low connectivity. We knew that was going to be incredibly important. And so you can still access things like your drawings or do a daily log, and then it'll upload all those photos when you get back to having internet. Yeah, definitely a priority to make sure that was really easy to use in the field. And that's something that we've gotten great feedback on, and especially the ability to just do markup really easily, do things like overlay, on drawings as you get new drawings, just kind of the speed at which you can move through our drawings too, making sure things load really fast. Especially when you're in that state where you've got some internet, but not a lot of internet. That's something that we've optimized for a lot, is you're not seeing loading spinners. You can just kind of flip through your drawings really quickly. And then also having search, really powerful search, is something that makes a huge difference in the field when you're on a much smaller screen. It's always helpful, but that's especially a time where things are pretty tricky. It's hard going through a file system and things are really small. So just being able to type in your question and get an answer and get pointed to those documents. And then just really thinking through, for any experience that happens in a field a lot, what is a very, very mobile first approach. And so an example of that would be punch list. Say, we know you're doing that in the field almost always on a phone or a tablet, and you're having to enter, 100 plus punch list items in one go. It's so tedious. And so we built that in a way where you can really easily just be doing voice to text and walking around, not having to fill in little fields on a form on your phone. You can just do voice to text, describe what the issue is, click go, and then it's going to fill in all that information for you.
So any of this, Molly, you guys, any of this going to be, I'm sure AI is going to come into the question here. It's going to take those voice to text. It's going to summarize maybe some of those videos, some of that kind of stuff. Is that already in the product? Is that on the way? Kind of give me a little idea about that.
It's already in the product. We started with that with our first product, and it's embedded throughout all of our features. So like Emma just mentioned, the punch list, the great thing about it being an all-in-one solution is we have context, right? So if if we know who the plumber is, we know who, the person it should be assigned to. So we can fill out these forms really easily. All the documents that come into Constructable, we process. And it goes into our AI search. Emma keeps talking about our great search. We have both a keyword search as well as a Q&A search. So you can ask questions and get answers from any document that's coming in. All of the documents are processed and then like OCR'd, meaning just like the character recognition. So if the PDF comes in and it's been scanned and it's not readable, we always make sure the text is readable. Yeah, so we've got a lot of fun features like that. We're using AI throughout. And way more to come. So we're excited about that.
So let's talk about more about way more to come. What does that mean when you say that? Because there's already, it seems, a lot going on with this product. Again, I think it's smart starting with the drawing where everybody should be in starting with that. I think that's the main source of truth on any build. I don't care whether it's a remodel or whether it's a ground up, whatever it is. Got to have a good plan in place. So there's areas there for, because not only do you have your drawings, but you've got your specs, your spec book and all that kind of stuff. Is that included in your package as well? That's all included. Contracts, all the stuff in the contracts in there as well. And that's all searchable as well through this kind of AI and searching formats.
Yep. Yeah. We span from, field tools, specs, drawings, punch lists, photos, daily logs to what's kind of more all of your project management, RFIs, submittals, any documents you have, meetings. There's probably more in there. And then even beyond that to financial. So we actually can handle all your commitments, your change orders, your invoicing, your budgeting. We can get electronic signatures. So yeah, it's quite a wide platform, and that really is part of being an all-in-one solution. While we started with drawings, we wanted to make sure drawings worked incredibly well. And we've been continuing to expand that out, and that really is our vision, that we're going to be able to replace a ton of the software that you're using. But of course, we can't do it all at once. We need to make sure everything works really, really well as we continue to expand out. And so number one for us is that all of that is incredibly easy to use. And that is what's most important actually for having a product that can leverage AI and give people great real-time information is you need a product that feels almost like you're not using it and makes it incredibly easy to put information into it. And so that's really been our focus as we've built out the product and added all these areas, and especially like what you were asking about the field, making it so it's seamless throughout the day to put daily log information in. You don't wait till 3 days later and you're like, oh, okay, I finally got to do this. I'm going to put it all in. Like, how can we get all that information in there as quickly as possible so that there's visibility across the organization? And then layer on top of that, what are some great automations we can have, like the punch list feature that can be built. You need a strong foundation for that, and then you can be adding those features on top. I think, we've seen a lot of products that kind of like leapfrogged a little too fast, where they had a lot of like great AI features, but were still needed human interaction that was really hard to do. And so we feel like that's kind of the foundation that's most important to make sure is always there.
Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of throw you a bit of a, I'm gonna say this is a little tougher question, still considering the fact that AI will tend to hallucinate. It's a pretty good predictability module, right? It's great for that, but there still is a percentage of error in there. What's your experience with that, and maybe some stuff where clients have come back and said, this is not right, or kind of address that a little bit, because I know as a GC, former GC, that's one to be, I'm looking at an AI product. I'm concerned about that, because what I don't want is I don't want my PMs, I don't want my superintendents to be over here looking at this thing as a crutch that's going to be the end all be all. It gave me all the information. Here it is. Look, but then maybe it's not right. And maybe that cost us X amount of dollars, kind of thing. Can you kind of address that a little bit, maybe quell my fears?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, one thing to start is we're only looking in your own data. So a lot of problems with hallucination when you're using something like ChatGPT is that it can go out and it's looking at everything across the internet. Whereas ours is all very much constrained to your own data. So if you ask a question about, how is something done, it's not going to give you a general answer. It's only going to give you an answer based on the data that it finds in our system. And then it will always link to the sources where it finds that information. So ours is actually incredibly accurate. But what we always say is trust but verify, and we make that really easy. So when we answer a question for you, we'll always link to you where we got that answer from and why. And if it's multiple sources, we'll link all of them. And then as soon as you get there, say it's a drawing, it's some giant page of structural notes with 1,000 words on, 10,000 words on it, we'll always highlight in yellow exactly where that answer is coming from. And so while it is a second check, it's actually incredibly fast. And if, as a person who's working on this project and has all the context, if there's maybe we answered in a way that was not exactly what you were looking for, it's very, very quick to verify that. But we've then taken you most likely to the correct place to be looking at that information. And then same with things where we're filling information in, like that punch list example, we always highlight and show you what was filled in by AI so that you can go through it really quickly and just go, great, this all looks right. Or you'll say, oh, you guys, said this was the plumber. It's actually going to be this other person who's doing this punch list item. And it's just as fast to change it as it would have been to have to put that in yourself to start. So yeah, we do provide a lot of checks and balances.
That's good. Again, cross-referencing is one of the things, being able to cross-reference your item from whether it was in the spec book and then back into the drawing. And then was there an RFI on it? Was there any changes to it? Those types of things. Having that kind of cross-referencing, again, that's definitely a better assurance on those types of things. So I get nervous because when you start talking about people's data, you're collecting their data. And I've, often said, if you're, I don't know if you're pulling in historical data, if you're just pulling in the facts from the job. So if you're just pulling in the drawings from the project, the specs, and the contract, that's the only information you're kind of drawing from, and it's all specific to that project. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, that's correct. We call it's grounded AI. So it's grounded in your project data.
I get it. And then anything related, so it's all tied to that project information. And then what about when it moves to the next one? Nothing gets transferred over into the next job. AI doesn't, however that works. I don't even know how it works. How does it know it's on new job? Those kind of things. So it's all new. It's all fresh on a new project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every project is unique. Yeah.
Okay, so let me talk about that. Because I'm always looking towards at an executive level or a management level. We want to be able to compare, what's my data from this project to the next project to the next project? Are we improving? Where do we continue to, have issues, so we can maybe find that risk in advance? Anything in the product that kind of dashboards that kind of stuff out from the information that you guys are collecting?
We do have a dashboard. So if you're someone who's working across, an executive role or someone who's on multiple projects, you have a view where you can see all those projects, see things like how many open RFIs, open submittals are there across them. I do think that's actually a huge opportunity for us to do a lot more. Like you asked where we started, most important is that you nail getting all the project data. Your roll-up data is going to be no good if your project data is no good. And so that's where we really focus in expanding out the product to touch all those parts of a project. But as we're we will be through all those parts. Obviously, we'll continue to work on that forever and making that better. But I think a good, next evolution for us will be taking a step above that and looking at more of that executive level across things, being able to do things like ask questions across all your projects, find information, compare and contrast, look at reports that pull together things from projects. You want to understand even just the history of a subcontractor you've worked with across all the projects, things like that. So yeah, still a big area of opportunity for us.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So, construction, I always call it the age of AI, and construction tends to drag their feet when it comes to technology, simply because a lot of times, I think as builders, we've been burned probably far too many times than not on products that kind of, Emma, to your point, point solutions, right? Let's solve this one problem, but then all that data, all that information is siloed over here, and then I've got this tech stack that's just giant. I was one company, we were at a conference one time. They said they had over like 150 different softwares that they were trying to keep track of. Now, grant this is a very, very large company, but still, in a tech department trying to track, support and all that kind of stuff on 150 different softwares. It's crazy. You're probably running into that when you have the solution that you have. Like, what's the difficulty in getting folks? I mean, your thing is getting past change management. It sounds like the product is awesome, but then you've got a reluctant GC who's out there going, yeah, that sounds great, but I don't have the time in the day to get my team together and make this change to replace these three softwares. I don't care how much it costs because it just doesn't register with them. And I think that is the biggest problem right now. Like when we have great solutions, like Constructable send a great solution, but it's the industry, with the attitude, or it's the fatigue. Can you kind of speak to that and like what you've run into, and maybe some offerings that you've had that said, "Hey, look, we can do it better because we do it this way."
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely true. I think, people say construction is behind in technology, and that's completely a myth. We experienced the same thing. We were shocked when we went to people's offices and saw they were using, a team of 20 people. It's got 40 plus different products when you dig into it. And there's a ton of overhead to that. And, you know, we found a lot of people though that I think have kind of been in a bit of a steady state for the last 3 to 4 years. I think that like real peak of adopting a lot of new software was probably 3 to 4 years ago. Obviously, people are still adopting a ton of software, but what we see too when we go out in the market is a lot of people who kind of picked their software suite a few years ago and have not seen it evolve. It is what it was 3 years ago. And they're saying, why am I paying so much for something that with all this new technology, they're not taking advantage of it? It's not growing. I'm starting to see all these point solutions pop up that look amazing, but why do I want to add one more software? And so while there is fatigue, I do think people are starting to be really eager to kind of see what is that next generation of software. As far as onboarding goes, that's something that was really, really important to us to not be a big burden on people. And so our team takes on the vast majority of that work. And if you're on a solution, or even if you're not on a solution, you're just have a bunch of stuff in folders on a drive, getting that data into our product is entirely done by our team. And we've built a lot of tools to make that really easy. And so, we've been able to onboard quite large projects in days and not weeks. And so that I think has been something that's really kind of alleviated people's fears that they're about to sink in a bunch of time. We also spend a lot of time doing training with the team. We really want people to feel comfortable. We're very hands-on with all our new customers. And I think to the credit of the incumbents that are in the market, most people have used software at this point. Most people have used project management software. It's not, going to feel drastically different. I think, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel where it doesn't need to be reinvented. You're not going to see our product and go, oh my God, they're handling RFIs in a way that is, a 180 from what I do in Procore or what I do in Autodesk. Like how RFIs are handled is how they're handled in the world. And those products like do a good job of helping that workflow. And we really are just trying to optimize how that works, automate things where we can, solve usability things that we've heard people talk about that they've experienced in these other products. But, most people, things will feel somewhat familiar for them if they have used a project management software in the past.
Okay, very good. Molly, what's your take on it when you get out there to those fields and those folks kind of pushing back on you a little bit? Kind of tell me what that's about. I mean, you come from the construction background, the construction family.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more fear around it. Like, oh, I don't want to have my whole team have to switch, and all the consultants have to switch. We found that like Emma said, like people are used to software now, so it's not that big of a deal. And oftentimes they use it as an opportunity to like kind of retrain, folks that were a little bit resistant before. Now it's a new opportunity to retrain those folks. But yeah, we talk to a lot of companies that are, using a ton of different point solutions because, they've always done it that way. There's a lot of on-prem software that we run into, like with accounting. that's very, very painful. And so there is a lot, there is a lot of pain in software and construction. And, people say that, construction are dinosaurs and they don't adopt software. We kind of joke and say, like, I think they adopt too much software. There's like too much going on.
Yeah.
We've gone to job sites where there's like posters of like point solution to use for which, thing. Like, here's where you view plans, and here's where you do change orders, and here's where you do RFIs. And that just seems really hard. Like, if you're in the field on your phone and you have to log into all these different systems, that seems really hard. So getting everyone on board, from the accounting team to the people in the field, on one system, that's just is the dream, right? So
Yeah. Well, so I get it from clients of mine who are talking about kind of to your point, if they got these pictures, like nobody wants to print out anymore. Like, hey, if you're going to do an operation of some sort or whatever, this is the software that you use, and it's on a piece of paper. It kind of totally defeats the digitization of your stuff, and
mhm.
especially like instructions. Like if you get caught up in your software, like I'm lost. Where do I go? Your solution, does it have like a kind of, you know, uh, hey, I've screwed up here somewhere. How can I fix this? Like a Q&A, is that readily available on your software?
Yeah, we take support very seriously, and
Hmm.
it's mostly our team answering support because we feel it's really important to know what those questions are so we can really optimize to make a better experience.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we are very, very, we have like a little area in our software where it's like talk to a real human, and they get to talk to a real human, and we get to work through whatever issue they're going through. And we learn from that too and make it better. And so
So it's
we
not
make
it's not a chat bot or anything like that. It's actual you're chatting with a human from the
it's
program itself.
you're chatting with, yeah, someone in our office.
Ellie or
Yeah.
Emma,
Yeah.
probably,
Oh, right.
It's likely one of us.
I got you. I got you.
or
Very good.
other people on our team. But yeah,
Okay.
always a human.
So mid-size, large size, like what's the goal here for GCs? I mean, what's a good starting point? If say you're an up and coming GC, you're trying to get going, need something like Constructable. What kind of size are you guys targeting? 20 million and up, 50 million and up? What's that look like for you guys? Like where it's feasible for somebody to use your product. What's that look like?
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends too, just on the size of your projects as well. But we work with commercial projects starting at about $10 million, but up to about $500 million in construction volume across the company.
Mm-hmm.
Ranging in most of the companies we work with, even the ones doing huge, 60 to $100 million projects, are also still doing a number of small projects. And so that's something that's really important to us, is that our product can scale for that size of project, but can also be incredibly easy to use and intuitive. If you've got a project that's just going to take a month, you don't feel like, it's not even worth putting it in the software. You're still going to use it for that. So that's the range we've focused on right now, wanting to build just a really, really great product for that part of the market, which we feel like, incumbents have been a lot more focused on the really high end of the market lately, and products that have a ton of configurability and complexity in the workflows that they have that almost never get used.
Yeah.
And so us really focusing on that part of the market means we can build an incredibly robust product, but maintain it in a way that it's going to be very streamlined and still easy to use, since we focus on a part of the market that has a lot of similarities in the way that they work.
So Molly, I wanted to ask, um, again, if we were project side, you got some big projects coming up or whatever, that kind of thing. You're you're needing something. Is this something, because we talked about kind of licensing, there's so many different ways to kind of, we got these software companies that are, I need 15 seats, and then, oh no, I really need 30. You guys are trying to circumvent all that. It's you turn your product on and your company owns it. Is that the way it works? It's just you're going with it, or how's that work? How do you get people on it, and how do they get started?
Yeah, I mean, go to our website. We have 3 different tiers. So if you want just field management, you can do that. We've got project management and then the full financial management. So we're a flat fee. We're not per seat. We're not looking at your construction volume, mostly because we're kind of focused on the small to mid-size company here. So we feel like pricing, really just depends on the features that you're using versus the, that size. So,
Yeah, because that's a big question again. And this is another thing when I talk about fatigue. There's a fatigue on the management side and the executive side of the world is like, look, I'm so tired of having to figure out how you're charging me for this software. Like I need these licenses and then there's an upgrade for these other licenses, or there's a bonus section over here where we're actually going to charge you more money. And they're really tired of trying to figure all that out. I love the idea of this is the fee for the package that you get and let's turn it on and go. So really love
yes.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Monthly cost, it's simple, it's predictable, like you know what it is, so you don't have to stress out about doing some crazy calculation with your volume and all that, or being charged like overage fees or underage fees, like all that's kind of crazy. So we just wanted ease of mind. And most people fall into those 3 buckets of features. So
Yeah.
that's where we
So
landed.
month to month, are you guaranteed for a year, or can you cancel any time? What's that look like?
Yeah, we
we
typically go ahead, Molly. You answer this.
You can go. I've been talking for a while.
Yes.
We typically start with a 3-month contract. We want you to feel really comfortable, but we also want to make sure you're not just coming in, kind of trying things out really quick. So what we've heard a lot around trials and people also getting a bit of fatigue from trials. So yeah, although, we will let you get your hands on the product and actually feel it for yourself before making a decision.
I get you.
But
So
we do.
you've got a sandbox area that folks can go to and kind of get a feel for the product.
Yeah. If you reach out to us and talk to us about what you're, looking to try out, then we can set something up for you. And then what we'll start with is a 3-month contract where we can get you onboarded much faster than that. But just that kind of gives you ease of mind. Hey, look, if a month in, 2 months in, this isn't working well, we've never had anyone back out since we started. But so we are very confident with it, but we do like to not make people feel like they're totally locked into something. Or if you've got a renewal coming up, say for a product you're on, you can start with us for that 3-month period ahead of that. So you've got time to really feel confident we're going to be the right solution for you before you break up with whatever you're using. And then following that, we move into an annual contract.
So let's talk about that just real quick. We got a few minutes left here. I just want to say, what products out there, maybe competitive products out there, are you replacing? Are you replacing Procore? Are you replacing some folks who got into Autodesk and found out they're in way over their head, that kind of thing? Is that the kind of stuff you're replacing, or are you replacing some of these just point solutions that just aren't really meeting the need?
Honestly, all of the above.
All of them. Okay.
So we've brought in a number of companies from Procore, Autodesk Build, FieldWire, Buildertrend. That's a less common one for us, but yeah, primarily Procore. And then we've also had people who've never had software, never had purpose-built software, or tried something in the past and had moved away from it. People who are coming from all their RFIs and submittals are happening over email, their drawings and all their documents are just in a shared drive. So we have people starting with us from that. And then depending on each company, we're generally able to replace some point solutions as well. So like a good example with what Molly talked about is we were often finding if you were using Procore or you were using FieldWire, you still needed to go use Bluebeam for a few things as a project manager or someone in the field still doing things like some measurements, some markup, overlay, wanting to view your drawing side by side. We kind of looked at what are all the common reasons people are having to jump out and wanted that to be really built into our product. So you didn't need to do that. So, Bluebeam can do a lot. It's got like super, super power users. We're not trying to replace that. But for actually the majority of people on a project, they were using it for a really small set of things that our product has. So that's just one example. We have a built-in document signing for change orders. And so you can actually replace something like DocuSign. In that case, which you were having to buy a separate license for,
Yeah, I love
depending
that.
on what product you were using.
Yeah,
Our
there's
collaboration tools. Yeah.
nothing
Our
worse than a
collaboration tools
DocuSign.
make it so you don't have to use Bluebeam sessions. We found almost everyone using a project management software was still having to put documents into a shared drive too. Like a lot of people were buying Ignite because they couldn't get the share settings in their product to work in a way that they could be used internally and externally with
Yeah.
trade partners. And so we built a lot more customizability into our product with how you share documents so that it'll be really similar to how you'd work in like a OneDrive or an Ignite. And so people are able to stop using those products as well.
That's fantastic. One of the things that frustrated me about Procore early on, and I don't know if they've ever changed it since because it's been a while since I've, been messing around with their stuff, but I always had to my schedule was always like in Primavera or it was in, Microsoft Project or whatever. And I could never see the schedule, how it kind of overlaid onto, what I was doing at the time. And I would have to get out of the product to go to my schedule. Anything in your product that goes to the schedule, that addresses the schedule that's kind of set for your projects?
We don't have a built-in like build your schedule in our tool or in our product, but we do have a way to really easily post the schedule so that everybody on the project can see it. They don't have to go to Primavera. They can come in
Right.
and view the schedule. We've actually seen a lot of people using our markup. This is very interesting because you can kind of group markup in a way where it can be segmented by what it's for. They'll have like a markup grouping called schedule, and then they'll just use our highlight markup on the sheets to be like, okay, this is in this week, here's where like this trade is working and this trade is working.
No,
And
that's
then they'll have
great.
a group of markup that's like, week of October 4th, this is the schedule. Now, week of October 10th, this is the schedule, things like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, people finding creative things we didn't even expect because it's
See?
got a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, and I love that, right? Because again, the last thing you want is, plumbers tripping over the electricians and, because plumbers are, they're naughty and they like to cut electricians' lines and, the electricians like to get back at them,
Yeah.
nothing more exciting than a fight.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Everything ties
love that.
back to the drawings. Like that's really what it comes
Absolutely.
down to.
Yeah,
So being able to overlay your schedule on your drawings has, you see exactly those things.
that's right. You want to keep those animals in their own fenced area. That's for sure. Man, I love the idea of this product and I like the way that it's going. And I'm going to, after we finish the recording, I want to talk to you a little bit after we're done here, but I love it. I love the idea of it. Again, I think that most mid-sized contractors really needing something that's focused and intuitive to kind of get their project management organization kind of in line, not having 4 or 5 different, things to do. So I really love the idea. Just before we go, if we wanted to, if I've got some contractors out there that want to reach out to you, let's just put it out there. How do we get a hold of you?
The best way is go to our website, Constructable.ai. There's a little form there. Or you can reach out to me, Molly at Constructable.ai or Emma at Constructable.ai. Lots of ways. I'm on LinkedIn. But yeah, the easiest way is probably just check out our website.
Check out the website. All right, fantastic. Well, ladies, thank you so much today. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys will come back. I like to reach out maybe in 3 or 4 months and we'll see what's happening in 2026 maybe. That sounds like fun.
We'd love it.
That would be great. We'd love to.
All right, very, very good. Well, everybody, we're going to have to call this one a day, and I appreciate y'all being here, and we'll see y'all next time.